Have you ever heard a guitar fact that sounds so insane that it has to be fake? What if I told you that one guitar sold for more than $6 million? One of the greatest guitar players ever couldn't read music. And a teenage guitarist was so talented that professionals thought he would change music forever before a devastating diagnosis changed his life forever. These are 10 guitar facts that sound completely made up, but every single one is true. Let's start with one of the craziest stories in rock history. Number 10. The guitar that became one of the most valuable instruments on Earth almost ended up being just another acoustic guitar. In 1993, Kurt Cobain walked onto the stage for Nirvana's MTV Unplugged performance, carrying a weathered Martin acoustic guitar. At the time, nobody knew the performance would become legendary. The set would eventually be viewed by millions of fans and become one of the most iconic live performances ever recorded. Years later, that exact guitar went up for auction. Collectors expected a huge price. What they didn't expect was for it to sell for more than $6 million. Think about that for a second. Not a mansion, not a supercar, a guitar. Its value came from the story attached to it. Number 9. One of the most famous guitar techniques in history was created by accident. Today, almost every guitarist knows what tapping is. But back in the 1970s, it looked like something from another planet. Eddie Van Halen wasn't trying to invent a revolutionary technique. He was simply experimenting. He wanted notes that moved faster and sounded different from traditional picking. While messing around with his guitar, he discovered that using both hands on the fretboard opened up entirely new possibilities. The result? A technique that inspired millions of players and completely changed rock guitar forever. Number 8. One of the world's most recognizable guitars was originally considered a failure. When Gibson introduced the Flying V in 1958, people hated it. The design looked like a spaceship. Most players thought it was ridiculous. Sales were terrible. Many stores couldn't sell them. Production nearly disappeared. But then something strange happened. A new generation of guitarists started embracing the futuristic look. Over time, the Flying V became one of the most iconic guitars ever created. What was once considered a mistake became a legend. Number 7. Stevie Ray Vaughan played guitar with strings so thick that many modern players struggle just to bend them. Most guitarists today use lighter strings because they're easier on the fingers. Stevie did the opposite. His string gauges were so heavy that many musicians who tried his guitars were shocked by how difficult they felt. The payoff was his massive tone. Every bend sounded enormous. Every note felt powerful. The downside? His fingertips often looked like they'd survived a war. Number 6. The guitarist many people consider the greatest of all time couldn't read traditional sheet music. Jimi Hendrix completely changed what people believed a guitar could do. His creativity influenced generations. His playing sounded almost supernatural. Yet he largely relied on instinct in his ears. He wasn't sitting around analyzing music theory textbooks. He was listening, experimenting, creating. It's one of the greatest examples that creativity can sometimes matter more than formal training. Number 5. The world's largest playable guitar is longer than many homes. Built to break records, the instrument stretches over 40 feet long. And yes, it actually works. Imagine trying to transport it to a gig. Imagine trying to fit it through a doorway. Changing the strings alone would be a project. Yet somehow engineers managed to create a guitar that could genuinely be played. Number 4. Some professional guitarists have insured their hands for millions of dollars. For most people, a hand injury is an inconvenience. For a professional musician, it can end a career. That's why some performers have taken out insurance policies protecting the parts of their body responsible for making them money. When your hands are your livelihood, they become one of your most valuable assets. Number 3. Eddie Van Halen's most famous guitar wasn't a luxury instrument. It was basically a homemade experiment. He wanted the sound of one guitar and the feel of another. Since nobody made exactly what he wanted, he built it himself. The result became known as the Frankenstrat. At the time, it looked like a strange collection of random parts. Years later, it became one of the most copied guitar designs ever created. Millions of dollars in guitar products were inspired by something that started as a garage project. Number 2. One guitarist became famous before he was even old enough to legally drink. Jason Becker wasn't just talented, he was considered a phenomenon. As a teenager, he was playing at a level that stunned experienced professionals. People believed he would become one of the greatest guitarists who ever lived. Then, at just 20 years old, he was diagnosed with ALS. Doctors told him he had limited time left. His ability to play slowly disappeared. Most people would have accepted defeat. Jason didn't. Even after losing the ability to physically play guitar, he continued composing music. His determination inspired musicians around the world and remains one of the most incredible stories in music history. And finally, number one. One of the most famous guitar sounds ever recorded came from equipment that many players would completely overlook today. People often assume legendary tones require expensive gear. But throughout music history, incredible recordings have come from cheap instruments, modified equipment, and setups that looked far from perfect. The lesson? The player matters more than the price tag. Because at the end of the day, the stories we remember aren't about how expensive a guitar was. They're about the musicians who picked it up and created something unforgettable. And that's the real reason guitar remains one of the most fascinating instruments in the world. Subscribe for more guitar stories and music facts.